Rabbi Elimelech Milezhinsk, Allah Shalom, one of the main Talmidim, one of the two main Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov, he says the following. He says in the Noam Elimelech, his book Noam Elimelech, Parashat Noach, that in every generation there's one mitzvah that's like the Tikkun, like a rectification for the entire generation. Meaning that the entire generation needs to exert themselves on fixing this one thing. Everybody has a deficiency in this mitzvah. That if everybody does it, they could literally bring Mashiach. Every generation. It's not the only thing they do. It's not, oh, you just do this one mitzvah, Mashiach's going to come. No, if you stay Mechalel Shabbat, it's not going to help. If you're going to stay Imaris, it's not going to help that you did something. So for example, he says in his generation, the mitzvah was mitzvah of tzitzit. In his generation, was the mitzvah of tzitzit. These are Hasidim that were, mamash, they knew exactly what was happening in Shamayim. It's not regular people that you compare. I've told you a couple of stories in the past about Rabbi Elimelech Milezhinsk, just to remind you a little bit. One time there was a father that wasn't one of his Talmidim, but was encouraged, or in a nice way encouraged, but in a more clear way, forced by his wife to go to Rabbi Elimelech. Why? They had a daughter that stopped growing at the age of 2. She stopped growing. By the time she was 16 years old, 15 years old, she still looked like she was 2 years old. Poor little girl, couldn't move. She's 16 years old, but she looks like a baby. So the wife kept telling the husband, go, take gold. He's a giant, he's tzaddik, he's Kodesh Kodashim. Everybody knows that he makes miracles. Kadosh Baruch Hu, mamash, talks through his throat. Go to him. Eventually the husband went. When he got to his house, he saw that the rabbi wasn't there. So they said, just wait here. And he waited, and the little girl was placed on his bed. So as soon as the Rav came inside, he saw some girl laying on his bed. He said, Chutzpanit, rude little girl, get off my bed. Now the girl couldn't move. She couldn't move before this. But as soon as Rabbi Elimelech said this, the father was surprised. He saw her get up, stand up off the bed, and fall. First time in his life he saw this girl do this. He starts crying to Rabbi Elimelech, seeing obviously this is the Ish Kadosh. He makes this kid that hasn't moved in 15 years just get up and get off the bed somehow. This is the Ish Kadosh. This is as a holy person. He says, please, Rabbi Elimelech, please help us. He goes, what? What's wrong? Who are you and why are you on my bed? So he tells him the whole story. She's really 16 years old. She's not 2. Because so how come she's not growing? So she has disease. This, that. He goes, okay, grow. And the kid grew. He says, grow. And the kid grew. And in a matter of mamash seconds, she grew to be 16 years old little girl. Now you can believe it, you cannot believe it. It's up to you. This is eyewitnesses. Had this, saw this, and this is one of countless stories. Now how did somebody become so holy? One time, Rabbi Elimelech Milezhinsk heard from his Rav that in Shamayim, the Omek Hadin, the depth of judgment is so critical, we have very little understanding of it. To such an extent that one of the students of Rabbi Israel Misalant and his friend, his Chavuta, they promised each other, as a side story, they promised each other that whoever dies first, come back to the other one and tell him what's going up in Shamayim. What's going on in Shamayim. So when one of them died, He came to him after 11 months. He goes, "Oh, what happened to you? How come it took you so long to come to me?" He says, "Listen, I've been judged every single second for the last 11 months. He says, "Okay, so tell me how, what is it?" He goes, "I can't tell you. I can't tell you what's going on. I don't have permission to tell you." He goes, "Can you tell me anything?" He says, "You know how we worked our entire life, 70 years we worked on fixing our midot, fixing our mitzvot, fixing everything to make sure that we're good?" He said, "Yes." He says, "The depth of judgment in heaven is much more critical than we thought." These are people, by the way, that you could just look at them and think, this is Malach Hashem. This is like an angel. This is not a human being. And they said it's this. So Rabbi Elimelech heard something similar from his Rav. He was previous generation. Heard from his Rav that the Omek Hadin is critical. To such an extent that if you hit your mother, you hit your mom when you were little, 3 years old, there's judgment on that. There's judgment on that. Oh, 2 years old, 3 years old. It really means to hit us. That's how 2-year-olds are. They hate everybody. They don't know it hurts. They don't know it doesn't hurt. When Rabbi Elimelech heard this, he remembered, Mamash Beruach HaKodesh, that one time when he was 3 years old, he hit his mom. He took his hand and put it in the fire. Burned his hand. Lost complete feelings off of his hand. He said, "I'd rather have it here than over there." This is not recommended. Why? Because he's a Ish Kodesh. We are, B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully will become Baalei Teshuva one day. But to show you what they understood of what's happening in Shammai. So the person that he cured his daughter, if you will, they asked him, which hand? Which hand did he do it with? He says it's the hand, not the one, the one that's the one that was burned. He goes, "Yeah, but he lost feeling in it." He goes, "I don't know. That's the hand that made her grow." Hand like that did such tshuva like that, it's holier than the other hand, hasn't done tshuva yet. So, this same Rabbi Elimelech says that every generation has a tikkun, has a rectification, that if they do it, they could literally bring Mashiach. So one of the Hasidim that just left us in the last year, Shem Yerachem Aleinu, Zchutu Tagin Aleinu, Rav Steinman. Rav Steinman, Alav Shalom, was someone that completely removed himself from what we call reality. From materialism, from anything physical. I mean, just extraordinary life. People would literally just to go to his house. You just go to his house, see how Gdolado, that people are giving him millions and millions of dollars. He lives in a bed that has some mattress from, I don't know, the 1920s. Probably some jail or something was throwing them out. On top of milk crates. That was his bed. Now people are giving him millions of dollars for his yeshivot. But he himself, his house is worth $5 maybe. You go to his house, you do tshuva. Why? You see how removed from reality he was. He gets up, right as soon as he gets up, he has his sfarim right there, finished. There's the bed, there's a chair, there's a table. That's the house. So they asked him, Kvod Harav, one of the other Gedolei Hador, Rabbi David Abu Chatzira, from the Baba Sali family, asked him, Kvod Harav, if Rabbi Elimelech said such a thing about his generation, if he said such a thing, what's the tikkun for our generation? Rav Steinman Alav Shalom said, the tikkun for our generation, the tikkun for the entire generation is bitachon, is confidence in HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the level where you have zero reliability on anything material, any human being, anyone but HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the tikkun. If you can get yourself and work on yourself to simply go to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything. Don't rely on your boss. Don't rely on your customer. Don't rely on your parents. Don't rely on your kids. Don't rely on anyone. Not your wife and not your husband. Only rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, of course, all of these things are still part of your life. You still have a boss. You still have customers. You still have parents. You still have a wife and a husband and so on and so forth. You still have all of those things. But you don't rely on them. You know that everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But not, you know it like when everything is good. You know it when everything is as dark as night. You know it's coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the Tikkun. If we can do that, we can rectify the entire generation. Why? Because if you have such bitachon, of course you fixed all of the other majors too. Because you cannot get to such bitachon, such confidence in Hashem, while sinning against Him constantly. You cannot get to such bitachon being a mechalel Shabbat, or being an immodest woman making a machtiar rabbi, making other people sin, or being somebody that's a parutz, is a immodest and promiscuous. Can't. You can only get to that level of bitachon if you fix all of the other majors too. But if you can do it, you can fix your whole tikkun. So, if I said it, it's a nice thought. But when Rabbi Yaron says such a thing, you can understand that this carries a lot of weight in Shamayim.